I ultimately got 3 of my coworkers fired and made my boss's life a living hell. And it all started because I followed an order that wasn't real. To this day, I'm still wearing the green belt that started half the trouble. This all happened a few years ago when I was working security for a Major League Baseball park. It was a pretty cool job, but I wasn't part of the game day security team that you see checking bags or showing people to their seats. I was in a different department called 24-hour security, which was responsible for guarding restricted areas, monitoring the camera feeds, and generally keeping an eye out for any emergencies in the park around the clock. Each department had its own manager, and then there was one big boss, a Mr. Davison, who oversaw all of security. Honestly, it was an amazing job, especially because the park itself was stunning. During my night shifts, I was often the only person walking through the entire massive park. I had these beautiful, silent views of the city skyline, and part of my patrol even included a peaceful river walk. The only real downside was that most of my coworkers were sexist, middle-aged men. At the time this all went down, I was a 20-year-old woman, standing at 5 feet 2 inches and weighing maybe 112 pounds soaking wet. This wasn't even my first time dealing with harassment there. I'd actually quit once before because of it. A coworker had made it his mission to spend as much time with me as possible, starting conversations out of nowhere and insisting I should partner with him. Then, behind my back, he was telling everyone that I wanted him, making gross comments about the size of my chest, and claiming that women with larger breasts were inherently more sexual. It's hard enough to command the respect you need to keep people safe without being treated like a piece of meat every single day. I went to my boss at the time, a guy we'll call Marcus, and told him everything. He promised he'd talk to the guy, but nothing ever changed. Soon after, Marcus was transferred, and I found out he'd secretly been saying the exact same disgusting things about me the whole time. He never had an ounce of respect for me as a security officer, which was devastating to learn, but I knew I had done good work regardless. With Marcus gone, his superior, Mr. Davison, took over direct management of our department for a while, so I approached him about the same coworker. His response was something I will never forget. He looked me dead in the eye and said, and I quote, "Well, as a woman in a male-dominant profession, you really should expect this sort of thing. So, I quit." It seems some viewers felt that quitting wasn't enough. One commented, "Lady, you should talk to an attorney, that shit isn't right, and your quitting didn't make any permanent change. If you were forced to quit due to sexual harassment, you should be compensated," and they were right. It wasn't right at all. As it turned out, karma handled it for me. Mr. Davison went into an early retirement later that year, and the harassing coworker made the mistake of making a sexual comment to someone from HR and got himself fired. A while later, the man who would become my new boss, a guy we'll call Mr. Thorne, took over Marcus's old position. Someone mentioned my name to him and praised my work ethic, so he sent me an email asking if I'd be interested in coming back. I was looking for a second job, so I accepted. Unfortunately, it didn't take long to see I'd have issues with Mr. Thorne, too. There was no pretending to respect me. When I first interviewed with Marcus, he'd made comments like, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be so small," but he never suggested it would stop me from doing my job. Mr. Thorne, on the other hand, immediately told me he'd be keeping me on desk and office duty and took me off the night shifts I loved. The uniform was another battle. Marcus had warned me the smallest sizes would be huge on me, and he was right. The shirt went down to my knees. The pants needed to be hemmed 5 inches, and I had to buy my own shoes and belt because nothing the company provided came close to fitting. He was understanding, even when I had to wear a pair of all-black non-slip sneakers from the kids section and a green fashion belt that I owned because it was the only one that could actually cinch around my waist. Mr. Thorne was a different story. On my first day back, he tried to make me wear company-issued shoes that were 2 sizes too big, insisting I had to be in uniform. He only relented on the belt when he saw that without my green one, my pants were literally falling off my body. He grudgingly accepted the shoes but insisted I needed to buy a sturdy black leather belt immediately because it was part of the uniform. I was already annoyed that I had to buy my own gear for a job that was supposed to provide everything, so I just told him I'd get to it when I had the money. I decided to prove myself. I took on a ton of office work that was technically above my pay grade, and eventually, I earned Mr. Thorne's permission to take over the early entrance post before baseball games. This was a special gate for season ticket holders and VIPs. Even though my department guarded it, it was technically managed by the game day security team. This is where everything went sideways. One day, a game day security guard came over and told me they were opening the early access point to everyone a half hour early. This wasn't unusual on days with small crowds, so I had no reason to question it. The problem was, it wasn't true. Unaware, I packed up and returned to the office, walking face first into a hurricane. A coworker of my same rank, a guy named Derek, was already in the middle of a rant before I even stepped through the door. I hate confrontation, so my first instinct was just to calmly figure out what was wrong. But then he was in my face. This man was over 6 feet tall, and as he loomed over me, I could feel the anxiety begin to coil in my stomach. "Who told you could leave early access?" he barked. I don't know his name," I stammered. "You don't know?" He shot back. "It wasn't me. It wasn't him," he said, gesturing to Mr. Thorne. "Who did it?" At the same time, I was just repeating, "I don't know. I don't know." He leaned in, his voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, so there was someone." It finally clicked. He actually thought I had just abandoned my post for no reason. "Yes, a game day guard told me they were closing it early." "What game day guard? Was it a supervisor?" "If it wasn't a supervisor, you shouldn't have listened." This was Derek's fatal flaw, a towering arrogance fueled by misogyny. He saw a small woman he could intimidate, never once considering that in the world of security, observation and information are the real sources of power. He was screaming directly into my face now, pointing at the monitor. "Look, there's another one getting in, and another, and another. Oh, look, they're having a big ol' party at early access." He then launched into a full-throated, top-of-his-lungs tirade about how people spend good money on those tickets. That's when I broke. I have PTSD from years of abuse, and while things like fireworks or even an armed threat don't trigger me, I cannot handle someone screaming in my face. My body started shaking uncontrollably, and I sprinted for the bathroom, sobbing and struggling to breathe. I called my boyfriend and asked him to come take me home. Mr. Thorne got on my radio, telling me not to make a scene and that security officers needed to maintain composure. Meanwhile, 2 other coworkers who had witnessed the whole thing were texting me, making sure I was okay and expressing their shock at what Derek had done. The next day, I was scheduled for a night shift, alone with Derek for the entire night in the empty park. Before that shift, I needed to make it crystal clear that his behavior was not acceptable, but given my size, I was afraid he wouldn't take me seriously alone. I asked my boyfriend to come in with me before my shift started, just to stand by and mediate if necessary. We arrived 10 minutes early. I approached the security office window from the public lobby to talk to Derek. My boyfriend stood a few feet behind me, well away from the window. My shift hadn't started, and we were in an area accessible to the public. Derek looked up, saw my boyfriend behind me, and his face soured. "What are you doing here?" "He's my boyfriend," I started to explain. "Get out." His eyes went wide. He pointed at my boyfriend. "You, get out. You think you're just gonna come in here like this?" "Derek, stop. He's just here so I can talk. Shut up," he roared at me. Then to my boyfriend, "What the hell do you think you're doing, bringing him in here?" My boyfriend finally spoke up. "Hey, don't talk to her like that." Derek's chest puffed out. "Oh, you wanna go? You wanna go? Let's go." He stood up and started marching from behind the desk toward the office door. We were done. My boyfriend and I were already heading for the exit by the time Derek burst into the lobby, yelling about how my boyfriend was now banned from the building. I sent Mr. Thorne a long text detailing what just happened and went home. The next day, Mr. Thorne called me into his office. I expected a discussion. I got a scolding. He gave me a verbal warning for walking out on my shift. When I pointed out that Derek was screaming at us to leave, he claimed Derek was only yelling at my boyfriend. He told me he'd already received a text from Derek about the incident before he got mine, and that's when it all clicked into place. Derek got to him first, so my side of the story didn't matter. Mr. Thorne didn't care about the truth. He cared about making problems disappear as quickly as possible, and to him, I was just a problem. This is where Mr. Thorne sealed his own fate. A good manager would have investigated. As one commenter later noted, "What a jackass of a boss." I've never tolerated any kind of behavior like that from any of my security employees. It sure as hell wouldn't have taken me less than a week to sack their asses. More like less than a day, but Mr. Thorne wasn't a good manager. He thought he was sweeping a small problem under the rug. He had no idea he was just handing me the shovel I would use to bury 3 of his employees and cripple his entire department. I just sat there, nodding like a good soldier, and waited for him to finish. After one last demand that I buy a black belt, he sent me on my way. My plan was set. Derek and Thorne were so blinded by their own authority they forgot the fundamental truth of our job. We are the security department. We control the cameras, the logs, the evidence, and that night, I was going to use every bit of that control. I went to the office, checked the schedule, and saw a coworker named Leo was on the night shift. I asked the other person scheduled if I could switch with them, and they agreed. That night, I told Leo he could take the first patrol. The moment he was gone, I put my security access to its full use. I navigated the system, the silence of the massive, empty park broken only by the clicks of my mouse. I pulled up the video evidence of both of Derek's meltdowns. It was sickening to watch the footage of myself breaking down, but I recorded copies of everything on my phone. Thanks to all the extra office work I'd done, I knew exactly how to log and mark the events according to official protocol. I wrote up the incident reports myself. When Leo returned, I was done with phase 1. After we chatted for a minute, I sent him on his next patrol. I noticed he had left the office phone out. That was my opening for phase 2. I checked the text messages from the previous night, and there it was. Derek had used that very phone to send his version of events to Mr. Thorne. I read exactly what he had sent and took a photo of the entire conversation for HR. Finally, I noticed he'd also left a Facebook group chat open on the computer. Now, I don't normally snoop, but Leo was someone I had considered a friend, and he had left it open on a work computer. My stomach dropped as I read. Not only was Leo just as bad as the other harassers, but he had been in that group chat all night with another coworker and our old boss, Marcus, talking about me. They were describing in graphic detail what they'd like to do to me if they had me to themselves all night. Because he did it on a work phone, I knew he'd be in trouble. I quickly took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, and deleted the evidence of my snooping. I took my last patrol that night, enjoying a slow, leisurely stroll through the park as the sun began to rise. When my shift ended, I walked to the office whiteboard and, in my best swirly handwriting, wrote a simple, 2-word message: I quit. On my way out, I stopped by the HR department and dropped off my neatly compiled reports. I had already emailed all the videos, screenshots, and my full account of the events to them, and to people even higher up than Mr. Thorne. And yes, when I walked out for the last time, I was still wearing my green belt. Mr. Thorne tried to save face, telling everyone I was just a dramatic troublemaker and that Derek had done nothing wrong. But the evidence was undeniable. Less than a week later, Derek was fired, and so were Leo and the other coworker from the group chat. Suddenly, a department that was already understaffed lost 4 people. To make matters worse for Mr. Thorne, while he still had a few good workers, the ones who were fired, even Derek, had been some of his most competent employees. He kept his job, but I've heard plenty about how much he has struggled since then, and that was revenge enough for me. I took out the trash, got justice for myself, and maybe even made the place a little safer for the next woman who walked in the door. This story is a powerful reminder that true strength isn't about physical size or a loud voice, but about intelligence, resilience, and knowing how to use the tools at your disposal. When they underestimate you, they give you all the power you need. What's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed in a workplace?